Hello everyone, I hope I am audible to all of you. Kindly confirm by typing yes. Okay, great. So good afternoon to all of you and welcome to our webinar session today. I am your moderator for today, and this session is on a very important topic on how to maximize learning by modifying environment at home and at school. And I am glad to announce that our webinar today is with Ms. Pooja Bose ma'am, who is our webinar facilitator for this session. Ma'am has a vast experience in educational field. She has been principal of various renowned schools of our country and has been mentoring parents, teachers, and students since 25 years. Ma'am is currently serving as principal of the High Range School at Munnar. I welcome you, ma'am, too. And I would also like to announce that we are going live on our FairGaze Facebook page. So all of you who are watching us there, you can also send us your feedbacks and queries there. So before beginning, I would like to tell that today's session will be a 40-minute session wherein Ms. Pooja Bose ma'am will be giving and sharing her valuable insights. And after that, we will be moving on with a 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer round when you all will get a chance to interact with Ms. Pooja ma'am. So I hope this session will be a valuable one for all of you. And now I'm handing over to Ms. Pooja Bose ma'am.
Good evening to all of you. Dear friends, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. So today, FairGaze has touched upon a very important and valuable subject, which is how to modify and enrich the learning environment. And I thank FairGaze for giving this opportunity to me to shed some light and share my views with all of you fellow educationists. First and foremost, this is going to be a two-way process. So we will communicate, and by communication, we mean that we listen and we talk and we exchange viewpoints. So one good thing is that after my talk is over, I will look forward to your valuable suggestions, comments, questions, and because all of us are equal participant in this new change which has come up in the past few months. So as we all are, either as teachers or as parents or as educationists, all of us are connected with the purpose of learning. And learning is very close to all of us. But as we have seen in the past 60, 70 days, the whole definition of learning has undergone a lot of transformation. For us, learning had always been connected with schools. Learning was always about teaching. And suddenly, we find ourselves at the cusp of a new transformation in the teaching environment, in the learning environment, in the educational scenario. Why that has happened, we all know, but how to tackle this change, how to handle this change, I think all of us are still struggling with this new dimension, with this new changeover, with this new makeover. But human beings are known for their toughness, their resilience, and I'm sure that this time also we will overcome and bring about a new and a beautiful, more better change in our learning environments. As of now, most of our children are sitting at their homes and they are using the internet to learn. The teachers also are in their homes and they are also using the internet to teach. But we all feel somewhere that this entire teaching and learning scenario is not as good as the one which was happening in school. And the reason is that all of us have been groomed to learn and to teach in a particular manner, which is more traditional and which is more comfortable for all of us. Having said that, learning is not really limited to schooling. We all know that. In fact, learning is much bigger than schooling. And learning also involves lot of stakeholders, lot of agents, parents, friends, teachers, parents, and so many more, which are not really visible to all of us. Let us first take the very subject of learning and what it is and why it came into being. What is the entire shape of learning which has been prevalent in our society? What has been the philosophy behind learning? So I would like to share a small presentation with you regarding that. Are the slides visible?
Yes, ma'am, they are visible.
Okay. So here we are trying to understand the environment which will enrich the learning process. But have you ever wondered, why does learning happen and why is it that we always associate learning with teaching? Isn't it so that learning also happens when there is no teaching? Have you ever wondered, when a young child, a toddler, how does he start speaking his first words and babbles papa or mama? In the late 1900s, the UNESCO came out with a document which was called the Delors Commission, and which printed a book called Learning, a Treasure Within. And in that document, there were 4 pillars of learning which were brought out, which were said to be the foundation stones of a 21st century learner. And today I'd like to begin my talk with these 4 pillars of learning. The first pillar of learning was learning to know, which means that knowledge is the one that liberates. It is given in our Vedas, Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktya, which means knowledge gives us freedom. It brings us liberation. But knowledge in itself is not the ultimate aim. Most of the schools believe that collection of information and facts is knowledge, which is not the case. In actuality, knowledge comes only when you put those facts to practice, apply them in your real life, evaluate them and analyze them in the current scenario. And then it leads to wisdom. And wisdom actually is the one which liberates. In fact, people with too many factual knowledge and too much of information, they tend being proud of themselves, develop ego, ahankar, as they say, and that is not the sign of a liberated person. The second pillar of learning is called learning to do, and it has everything to do with practical skills. Now, we always know that our schools have emphasized about knowledge. We go to the classroom to teach. In our curriculum itself, only 10 to 20% weightage is given to practicals. And it is enough to be as an evidence that practical skills are really not of much value in our current educational system. Though slowly this transformation, this realization that practical skills are as important as knowledge is dawning on us. However, in our society, unfortunately, we feel that the more educated we are, the less work with the hands we should do. In fact, we look down upon people who do work with their hands. We are a society which values a lot about the mind, the skills of the mind, but we look down upon people who clean who are doing plumbing or who are doing carpentry. These are facts, and they are sad facts, because in our society, whereas we produce the best of the products from IITs, but our ITIs are still suffering from substandard teaching. The of our school education system is to make us college ready, whereas that was not the ultimate aim of 10 plus 2. In fact, 10 plus 2 seems to have wavered somewhere away from its actual course, because it was envisioned that after 10 standard, the students will get to choose between the academic skills in 11th and the vocational subjects in 11th. But however, hardly any vocational subject is given enough importance. So the Karma Yoga, or the learning to do, has been grossly undervalued. And therefore, we have many youths in our society who are unemployable. That is why we have so many college-ready children, students who are not enough or not having enough employment skills to survive in this society. The third and the most valuable pillar of learning, to my mind and to the today's times, is learning to live together. Thousands of years ago in our Vedas, when our sages envisioned Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that the world is one family, that time we did not have internet or a global scenario to understand how big this earth is or how we will get connected. But they knew that unless we connect with each other, unless we have the values which will think of us as one species, one family, we will never be able to prosper. Sadly, however, even today, we find this value missing completely on our globe. When the COVID has struck, we see that instead of joining hands, countries are now again using divisive forces to tackle this problem. Whereas had they joined hands and understood the problem together, maybe solutions could have been reached much earlier. Connected with this, connected with living together, are so many values which our children need to learn. And the first value, to my mind, the most important value, are the family values. And in the family values, we know that we have in our society, old people, though not as bad as the Western world, are also suffering. We tend to neglect our old members of the family. Children observe that, children learn that, and we need to modify this learning environment to teach them better family values. The equation between husband and wife is also observed, is also understood, and the children are sensitive to the way the husband is treating the wife and the wife is treating the husband. So this family value is also necessary to be analyzed and modified and enriched so that children know what it is. The societal values. If we look at our society, what does our society teach us? Not in words, but in action. Now, individually, we are very clean people, for example. We clean our homes. Whenever a festival comes, we believe in cleaning our houses and our cupboards and our outside verandas, etc. But collectively, our society is not so clean. We believe in dumping our garbage outside. We think that this is the job of the Safai Karamchari or the cleanliness worker to clean the streets. As a society, we are brought up thinking that way. The Western world also understands that cleanliness is a virtue, it's a big value, but it does not depend on some particular section of people in the society to clean their mess. But we believe that it is not our job to clean the public places. The interfaith value, the value which binds different religions, different faiths. In the Rig Veda, it is written, there is only one truth, and the learned call it by many names. Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, which means that there is only one ocean to which all the different rivers converge into. However, as we see around us, faiths are indulging in dividing the society, dividing people, rather than uniting them. And that is one value which is severely amiss in our social culture. And we need to modify this environment in order to make our children learn the value of interfaith. Learning to be, which means that a personality which is virtuous, which believes in values of commitment, of honesty, kindness. These are values which are equally important to be taught to our children. Again, when I'm saying all this, some of you might be thinking that this is not so important. This is not our job as teachers. But let me tell you, in the 21st century, unless a child possesses all of these qualities, learning to know, learning to be, learning to do, learning to live together, the child will never, ever be a complete individual. And when I say complete individual, success is associated with the object of being an all-rounder, being complete. Daniel Pink, in his book, A Whole New Mind, talked about the 4 stages which came across in this world. Every century, dear viewers, has been divided into different ages. And in each age, the values which human beings valued, which were upheld by the human beings, were different. In the 18th century, for example, this was the age of farmers, and agriculture was looked up to. There was a lot of importance given to the profession of agriculture, and people used to value the agricultural practices. There were a lot of researches going on around this profession. In the 19th century, which was the age of industries, there was a lot of production, factories were set up, workers were employed, and everybody believed that the more you produce, the better individual you are. So the value of productivity was valued at that time. A lot of importance was given to setting up of industries and production. Then came the information age, the age of internet, in which information, data, statistics, that was given a lot of value. And as we know that the more you were considered knowledgeable if you could produce statistics, percentages, data, and you could project your case in a better way. People used to get impressed by all of this. However, in the 21st century, not only information, not only production, but also another important value came in on the surface. And it was understood that it is actually the conceptual age, which is the age of creators, of thinkers, of empathizers, which is going to have the highest virtue, which is going to be the most important virtue you can think of. So if you can produce a design which is different from the others, I'll give you a small example. This is a water bottle. And everybody knows that a water bottle is to drink water. But in the conceptual age, in the 21st century, anybody who produces a water bottle which is more beautiful, which has more aesthetic appeal, and which does much more than the material, which fulfills more than just the material need of an individual, will be valued more. That is why we go for more aesthetic looking phones, more creative cups and saucers, more creative furniture, smartphones, everything which is more creative in design is considered better as compared to the usual lot. This is the conceptual age. So in this age, the more creative you are, the more empathetic you are, the better chances of your success are there. In the information age in the 20th century, knowledge workers were trying so hard just to crack facts and data. But in the 21st century, creativity is the buzzword. Now, CBSE has introduced so many 21st century skills. And I'm going to touch briefly about those 21st century skills, because learning, how well you learn, will depend to a large extent on how well our children develop these skills. And the first skill is the learning skill, followed by the literacy skill, and then the life skills. So when we talk about learning skills, which earlier was associated with literacy skills, we now understand that these two skills are actually different. Literacy skill is all about literacy in media, literacy in information, but learning skills is the ability to search for knowledge, ability to analyze knowledge, ability to treat knowledge the way we want to do it. And the learning skill actually has 4 C's. If you could remember and note down, what are those 4 C's? One is the critical thinking. That is to analyze, to synthesize, to evaluate something. The second and very important skill, especially in this century, is the creativity, to produce something which people have never seen before. If you could have another value associated with this water bottle, not just to drink water, but maybe some nice slogan written on it, some artistic painting done on it, people will be drawn to it more than just a water bottle to drink water. Collaboration, extremely important and missing in the 20th century people. Collaboration is nothing but an ability to reach out to others. And we, in our age, especially when we are asked to do some group work, we find it very, very difficult to join knowledge, to join facts, to connect, to network. These are extremely difficult skills for the people who are in their 50s or 40s or 60s. But now, in the coming age, children must learn to collaborate with each other. And what better time to learn than when they are in their childhood? So give them more projects to collaborate. Group work, peer work is extremely important for this reason. Then comes the value of communication. Now, like I said in the beginning, communication is a two-way process. It's listening and speaking. For some of us, especially some teachers, we believe that communication happens when we speak. We continue to speak in the class and feel that the teaching has happened, learning has happened. However, that's not the case. Communication happens only when you speak and the other person listens to the thing which you want him to understand. Unless that process is complete and feedback happens, communication is not complete. Therefore, remember that the teacher talk time and student talk time should be almost equal, or the student talk time should be much more than the teacher talk time. Amongst the literacy skills are the skills of information literacy, which means gathering facts. You must learn how to research, to assess data, to collect information, and to collect and connect pieces of information together. Then comes the media literacy, which is nothing but ability to know what is happening in the world of print media, social media, and reaching out to people around the society. Then the technology literacy, very, very important, which most of the teachers are today struggling with, is the fact that technology is another resource which we need to learn. We haven't been brought up in the world of technology, so it hasn't come naturally to us as much as it has come to our children. But we have to develop this literacy and we have to learn how to use technology to the best of our abilities and for our professions. The purpose of study. It is said, don't study because you need to. Study because knowledge is power. Study because they can never take it away from you, and study because you want to know more. Study because it enhances you, and study because it grows you. If a child is able to develop this purpose of studying, if you are able to develop this taste, this hunger to study, to know, to learn in the child, I think the purpose of education is achieved. That thirst for knowledge, curiosity, and hunger, when it develops in the child, I think the teacher's job is done. Some of the important life skills in the 21st century are leadership, flexibility, initiative, self-direction, and social interaction. And all these skills are also given in the handbook of CBSE, which is given to all the schools for teachers and students. And we as teachers have to develop these skills in all the children now. It has become part of the school curriculum. Therefore, leadership is to lead and follow, sometimes lead, sometimes follow. Flexibility is to be adaptable to the surroundings. So sometimes it's school learning, sometimes it's home learning, and we have to adapt and we have to be ready for both. Taking initiative is taking a lead without anyone telling you to do so. And self-direction is that self-motivation should come about what is to be done and what can be done by you, without anyone making you feel that this is your responsibility. Social interaction is the ability to reach out, that is learning to live together, reach out to other individuals, other members of the society, and have an amicable environment. These are the learning skills which we as grown-ups must learn to inculcate in our children. Equally important, I'm again emphasizing as important as literacy skills. Being empathetic is extremely important in today's world. And people who are more empathetic have been found to be more successful in their professional environments also. What is empathy? Empathy is to see with someone else's eyes. And it has, as you all know, it has nothing to do with feeling sorry for the other person, which is sympathetic. Empathy is just to feel and understand how the other person is feeling. And also to develop an empathetic attitude towards society, towards animals, towards other human beings, towards your parents, towards your children, and then dealing with it in that spirit. I particularly like this value because it's severely missing in most of the people around, including some of us. What is accountability? Accountability is the feeling of responsibility for any task done without anyone telling you to do so. When you feel that it is my responsibility to do something and I ought to do it, and I ought to do it well, that's the value of accountability. Extremely important value in your workplace, dear teachers. Anybody who demonstrates this important quality is bound to stand apart, rise over others, do very well in his or her workplace. Unfortunately, this value is not very prevalent because we feel that it's not my job. Somebody else will do it. I wasn't told. Nobody told me. I wasn't informed. These are very common statements which most of us say whenever we are asked or questioned about why a particular thing was not done as per standards. I'll try to show you a small video to demonstrate this important quality. I don't know if you can hear it. I hope so. Can you see it?
Pooja ma'am, sorry to
Yes,
interrupt in between.
Yes.
Ma'am, your video is not coming, audio is coming. Kindly restart it once again.
Okay.
Yeah, video is not visible, audio is coming properly.
Let me know. I'm starting it again. Huh?
Yeah.
Is it visible?
No ma'am, it's not coming. It was earlier coming, but it is it is not coming now. The video is not coming. Audio is coming.
I'll share again. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
share and I'll share again.
And now we can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Belief, the more effort I put in, the more likely I am to be free. That's a great metaphor for how the mind works, because most of us think the more effort I put in
So I'm sure all of you were able to watch this video, and you saw how one student, one child, in fact, felt accountable for the task at hand and how he was able to handle it. And then everybody understood that everybody's job is my job, whereas we feel that, you know, everybody's job is nobody's job. So this is accountability in action and a fine demonstration of accountability. Now, coming to the next thing which we need to understand, and which is that our brain works, as you all know, in two hemispheres, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And the right hemisphere deals with emotions and creativity, and the left hemisphere is logic and analysis. But in the 21st century, in the conceptual age, we need not only to function, but we also should develop design. That means aesthetic appeal. We need not only to learn to argue, that is when I say we, the children, but also to create a story. So it's okay to argue in the class, but with that argument should come out a beautiful story, a beautiful design, a beautiful creation. It's all right to be focused, but it is also important to create a symphony, to have a music, to have some rhythm to it. It's important to be logical, but it is also important to be empathetic, to have feelings for the other person. And it's important to be serious. It's important to take everything very seriously, but it is also important to be playful, to enjoy it, to love life, to think that there is more to life than just this. It is important to accumulate. It is important to collect wealth, to collect information, to collect data. But it is also necessary to find meaning in that data, to connect the dots, as they say. So, dear educators, ultimately it's the matter of head, heart, and hand, and that is the purpose of complete education. The learning cycle, if we understand what it is, we'll be able to teach better. It starts with procurement of knowledge or ability. The next stage which comes is apply. That means whatever you learn, you apply. For example, you first learn how to cycle. Somebody tells you that this is the handle, this is the seat, this is the pedal. You have to do this, you have to move your feet in this manner. Then you sit on it and you start doing that, applying that knowledge to action. And then you consider, that is evaluate. Then you develop your own style, whether you can paddle it this way or that way, faster, slower. Is it helping you? Should you do it in the first place, or are you not able to balance? You're considering it, whether to move on with this knowledge and ultimately transform. That means you modify and adapt, because some people, for example, you've seen some cyclists have their own special style of cycling. Some do it without their hands, some do it in another manner, some do it with, their hands at the back. So it's transformation. So this makes the packed learning cycle, and we must apply this learning cycle at home, in classroom, and wherever possible. Encourage questioning at home and in school. Questions are the very seeds of learning, and do not snub a child when he or she questions. In fact, encourage questioning. You have to learn to answer the questions, and you must question all the answers. Children must question all the answers, because that is the curiosity, the spirit, which will ignite learning in the children. The key principles of learning we must understand as educators. Learning helps best when children are treated with respect. Now, this is very interesting, and I want you to understand that learning, in fact, it has been scientifically proven that learning happens only in a happy environment. They say that a positive learning environment, always a happy environment, will lead to production of endomorphins in the blood. Endomorphins are the happy hormones. And this will give the feeling of euphoria, of happiness, of goodness in the children. And that stimulates their frontal lobes in the brain. And that makes learning a pleasurable process. So learning, happiness, and pleasure are closely linked. So therefore, treat children with respect. In a class where children are intimidated, disrespected, looked down upon, hardly any learning happens. What happens there is, because of fear, children tend to enact that they are learning, but actually it is not a deeper learning process. Learning opportunities should be, as much as possible, linked with previous positive experience. Please underline the word positive here. With the previous experience, if it's negative, for example, mathematics, fearful, teacher was very strict. She always used to snub me, never allowed me to ask questions. That would be a previous negative experience, and the child would never really like to learn mathematics. When possible, children should take part in the planning of learning activity. Ask children some important questions, decision-making questions. Okay, students, should we do chapter 7 first or 3 first? Should we do this exercise today, or should we go on to the next chapter? Small decisions when children start taking, then they start taking ownership and responsibility and feel participant in the learning process. And that encourages them to learn well. People learn best when their physical environment is comfortable. We all know the importance of having a good, clean, well-ventilated classrooms. If the light is poor, if the benches are hard, if time and again children are troubled with noise, hardly any learning will happen. Same goes for home. So whenever you are home tutoring your child, make sure that as less distractions as possible are there around the child. Interaction with a facilitator is vital, and that's you. As a facilitator, if you don't interact, if you don't touch, if not physically touching, but it's a mental touch, if you don't touch the child, if you don't influence the child, if you don't form a rapport with the student, then hardly any learning will happen. It will become like a robot teaching the child, and we cannot be robots. We are teachers. Give instant rewards like positive reinforcement. Give them a kind word, a smile, a gesture that they've done well. It is said that our children don't do what we ask them to do. In fact, they do what we do. Observation is a very important tool of learning. And we may say thousands of things, but if we don't walk the talk, then children will never learn the correct values. In fact, a lot of wrong things are learned at homes from observation, the way the father treats the mother, the way a brother treats the sister, the way the parents are treating the grandparents. All of these things are observed and learned. One important aspect which we need to understand as educators is the Program for International Student Assessment, which is called the PISA. And PISA is an international program which assesses how much learning 15-year-olds have had. Basically, it is assessing the learning in mathematics, science, and reading abilities. And according to reports, over 500,000 students representing 72 countries appeared in a 2-hour test in the year 2015. And the test was conducted on these 3 subjects. And the results were shared worldwide. India appeared in PISA in the year 2009. We ranked very poorly. It was an abysmal performance. And after that, we withdrew from PISA. We got so scared that, oh my God, our schools are so bad. Then we did not participate in PISA. Now, our government has decided that in the year 2021, we will again be participating in PISA. 2 states from our country would be taken as the pilot project of PISA, and let's see how well we fare this time. How do we ensure that we are able to learn at home? Now, this is a big question because the parents are almost blowing their top. They feel that it's getting too much of stress is there for making their children learn at home, forgetting completely that we are not doing this entire thing to create toppers again. So the desire, the drive of the parents that every time a child performs, he should be a topper is actually a very big cause of the stress. Whereas at present, the entire concept of continuity, being in touch with academics, is the very reason why online classes are going on. And we need to understand this change. We need to empathize with this change and then move on rather than keep on questioning it or resisting it. The best way in which as parents and as teachers, we can deal with this change is that starting your day with a problem or a question or something which happened during the course of the previous day can be shared. Give them practical projects like making food, making sandwiches, making curd that will be learning to do. Doing something for the grandparents, laying the table, helping them clean their cupboards, helping them clean their bed. Learning to live together and then dealing with some important questions, some relevant, thought-provoking questions and sitting and discussing is learning to be. All these things can very well be done at home without causing too much of stress. Look at this advertisement, learning by observation, and how children learn as they observe things at home.
अरे इतनी जल्दी उठ गई जा ब्रश कर Beta, you have to finish your breakfast. Very nice. Just finish this, okay? Toast.
थैंक यू।
क्या बनाया?
मेरे स्विमिंग पूल से।
मेरा भी तो बोला हो।
ओह हाँ, आपकी कितनी फ्लोर की है? 1, 2। कौन सी स्टोरी सुनोगी आज?
इसकी फेवरेट बर्फ वाली।
बर्फ वाली।
The cobbler made shoes. तो
मम्मी पापा
निधि।
So you saw how the children learn a lot of these traits, gender stereotypes, subtly at home in a quiet manner without anybody teaching them. So be mindful of the way you conduct yourself as parents, as elders in your homes. It is said that children if they live with criticism, they learn to condemn. If they live with shame, they learn to feel guilty. If they live with tolerance, they develop patience. And likewise, whatever you give them, they will develop the same personality traits. So it is very, very important, as is said, that Abhimanyu even learned so many traits in the womb of his mother. So you can well imagine the vulnerability of a child in the home environment. So be aware of this important influence that you have over the child. Khalil Gibran, in his poem on children, said, and I quote, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are set forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrows that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable." This is for all the parents who are helicopter parents, who feel that they have to be around the child always, to monitor, to understand, to optimize everything that the child is doing. Be the best swimmer, be the best writer, be the best public speaker, be the best painter. Is it possible? Can a child be the best at everything? Can you judge a fish by its ability to climb trees? Your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. Understand, the day you understand this as parents, 90% of the problems will be solved. It is said that in the seed truly is the tree. And lastly, some important things, some takeaways. A lot of learning can take place without undergoing the classroom experience also. Do not create stress, or it will hamper learning. Do not trust every information which comes to you on the internet. Help children to think creatively and differently. Encourage them to think creatively and differently. Help them search for relevant information and analyze it. And values always develop at home, always. And one more important point. I hope all of you have books like dictionaries, thesaurus, encyclopedias, and atlas at home. If not, then you should procure them and use them at home a lot of times. So these were my thoughts about learning. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll be happy to share some suggestions and views with you.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful views here. And it was lovely having you here. And now we will move on to question and answer round. So all the audience who are with us today and who are watching us also live, they can, if they have any query, you have 1 minute, you can send your queries in the chat box so that we can ask ma'am that. Any queries? Okay, we are getting so many good feedbacks. Any queries or any suggestions if anyone wants to share with ma'am or want to interact shortly with ma'am?
How many of you are looking forward to going back to school now? Are you all tired of teaching from home? Do you want to see the faces of children, to get the feedback from children? Missing them a lot. Dying to meet my kids. It is the whole emotional element of teaching and learning which is completely missing from online, isn't it? That is actually what we can say is the joy of teaching and learning, and that is completely missing. Are you all, because right now I'm seeing educators from different backgrounds, are you all feeling that the parents are also, quite stressed about the whole thing? Is it happening that way? I think we can unmute some of them and they can talk.
Okay.
How has the reaction from parents been? Can someone share?
Okay, so I'm unmuting Anita Anna Hillary, ma'am.
Yes, Anita, I would like to hear from you.
Ma'am, kindly unmute. You must have got notification for unmuting your mic.
Somebody said that give examples of critical thinking. Somebody has asked this question. Now, critical thinking is actually what we in general parlance call the higher order thinking skill. So it has everything to do with synthesizing information, analyzing information, differentiating information, creating information, evaluating whether whatever you have studied, is it correct or not. Just change the ending of the story a little bit. What if the villain wouldn't have died? What if the hero of the story would have died instead? Things like that. Then the children will think differently. What would be the outcome of the story? And also, can you connect what you learned in science with what you are learning in English? Is there a way of forming a connection? Do you think anything is common between what you are learning in the chapter of social study pollution and the chemical imbalance in science? These are the things which are involved in critical thinking. When you ask these questions, the child begins to connect information from one subject to the other, from one chapter to the other, and also start thinking of different outcomes, new outcomes. That's critical thinking. Now, how to engage students who are not receptive?
Ma'am, sorry for intervening. We have received one question from Suchitra ma'am. She is asking that how do you ensure student engagement in online classes?
See, online classes are electronic medium of learning. So, unlike face-to-face classes where, like I said, physical connect is there, in online classes, the physical connect is not there. Therefore, the educator has to create first an attractive environment so that students are glued to the screen. For that, you don't have to start with factual information. First of all, remember that giving too many facts in one go will be deterrent for your teaching. So therefore, in actual 40-minute classroom class, when you were giving, say, 10 pieces of information, in a 30-minute online class, you may be able to give only 2. So don't be over ambitious while you are teaching online. And the second is that always start with a story. Always start with something different from your topic. A story, a question, a curiosity statement. Only then will you be able to excite the child and engage the child. So engagement is a very important element in online teaching, which is mostly amiss in teachers because we take it for granted that the child will be sitting on the screen and learning. But that's not the case. The child is now having the choice to switch off, to mute you, and also to switch off from the class altogether. So that freedom to learn is now suddenly developed. So you must remember your classes should be exciting enough and engaging enough for the child. Have a lot of visuals, have a lot of videos for the children to enjoy.
Okay, so ma'am, another question from Rati Juneja. She is asking that how to engage students who are not receptive.
Yeah, I just answered that question, no? That you have to
Okay.
engage the children by giving them something different from factual information. And for that, you have to give a lot of visuals, a storyline, or, something which is away from the monotonous, mundane way in which you are teaching. So first 5 to 10 minutes, do not feel that you can just start your content. You have to start with something which is not really related to your teaching, but maybe a question. Maybe you ask 10 questions from the children and they answer back, and then they connect and they form a rapport with the educator.
Okay, so ma'am, Sangeeta ma'am is asking that how we can create curiosity in young learners.
Curiosity is nothing but a gap, a learning gap, a feeling of hunger. So if you have to teach a chapter of, for example, solid, liquid, and gas on a given day, a previous evening, you can ask the students to ask them to collect 10 different types of things from the home and bring it to the table when they sit to the class. So then they will be, when they are collecting, they will all be thinking, why has ma'am told us to collect 5 things from the kitchen, 5 from the bathroom, 5 from the bedroom? Why is she saying this? And what is she planning to teach? That curiosity, that hunger, that feeling of vacuum is actually the fountainhead of learning. So that is important. And every teacher should know that there is a turning point. There's a moment when the information when the answers have to be discovered, not given, but discovered by the children. And that is the crucial moment. And it has to come, it has to develop in a class. Answers should never be just put on the table for the children to know. There should be a gap, a vacuum, a hunger, a curious, highly curious moment. And then when they get the answer, that aha moment comes in the child's life. That is memorable learning. That is deep learning.
Yeah, that's true, ma'am. So any other questions from the audience side? Okay, Shija Varghese. I'm unmuting Shija, ma'am. She's raising hand. Ma'am, you might have received a notification for unmuting yourself. Is Shija Varghese, ma'am, here? Okay, so let's move on forward. I think we are end with queries section.
Madam, there is one very important question by Mr. Manoj Dwivedi.
Okay.
Whether literacy skills is self-developed or has to be developed by the teachers. So to answer this, I would say that literacy, no skill is developed by another person. No skill is developed by another person. Skill is always developed by the learner. The other person is merely a facilitator. If you are able to give the environment to the child to develop a particular skill, let us take an example of swimming. Can you learn swimming only by reading how to swim in a textbook? No. You have to get into the water. That environment to learn swimming has to be given to the child. And as many books as a child will learn to swim, unless he gets into the water and struggles in the water. And that moment of breathlessness with the parents also, that, oh my God, my child is going to drown. But everybody faces that moment when the child is struggling, when he's trying to battle with waters and ultimately begins to has to be developed ultimately, but by the child. You are merely an aid. Like you said, that you are just a medium, just a medium.
Okay, so I would like to tell that we are also going live on a FairGaze page. So if any people who are watching us there, if they have any queries, they can ask there too. Okay, ma'am. So we have received one question from our online audience. So they have asked that how to start the online session for primary kids. It's from Gokila side.
How to start an online session is always with a chat. Always
For the primary kids, she is asking.
For the primary kids also, for the pre-primary kids also, it's always has to begin with a conversation.
Yeah.
Online teaching is never a one-way process. In fact, teaching also is never one-way process. So unless you engage the children in a chat with primary children, how was your day? What did you do? Did you sleep well? What did you eat for breakfast? So today, should we study about this? Yesterday, I discussed about this, you remember? Now, should we move ahead? Can we do this today? Such questions will involve the children. So with the primary children, you have to make them feel important. You have to give them that respect. I told you dignity and happiness is extremely important in learning. The happy hormones have to be stimulated first for good learning to happen. So let them feel happy, not nervous, not anxious, not stressed about the whole 50 minutes or 1 hour which you are going to have with the children. So that is extremely, first you have to develop that moment of happiness and pleasure, and then start your information and your class.
Okay. So we are getting a lot of feedbacks for this session. Thank you to all of you. And so I think we'll close now. We are end with question and answer thing. So thank you so much.
Somebody has asked me about PISA. So I would say that PISA is a big area of a discussion and will not be difficult. It will not be possible for me to just give a brief about PISA. But yeah, one day we can have a discussion only on the program of international student assessment. It's very important because if we have to do well in PISA, we have to know about it. So we will soon have that discussion also.
Sure, ma'am. So any other queries from the audience side? So ma'am, one more query from our online audience that she is Suman, an online user, and she has asked that any suggestions for teachers who are also parents trying to balance online classes and teaching their own kids?
Yes. very difficult task. I must, my full support. It's empathy, not sympathy, but empathy for those who are parents and teachers. I know they are, how they are balancing the important aspect of being a teacher and a parent whose children are also studying, because you are doing, I mean, I think you are super women, super parents. If you have managed to teach your child and your students concurrently in the COVID lockdown, I think you have proven that you are super mothers and super fathers.
Yeah. So any other queries? Ma'am, we'll wait for some seconds now and then we'll close the session.
Sure. I want to thank FairGaze for giving me this opportunity to develop such a relevant topic and subject of great interest to me. And I'm sure all of us are interested in understanding and knowing about the very genesis and development of learning environment, because we are so closely associated with it. And I hope that we will in future think about learning to do, learning to be, learning to live together, as important as learning to know. So please bear in mind that if you want your students, your children to be 21st century learners, they have to be thoughtful, they have to be creative. This should be the takeaway of this session.
Well said, ma'am. And thank you so much for parting your valuable time with us. And it was a lovely session. We have received so many lovely feedbacks from so many people. And thank you so much. And we hope that we'll be conducting sessions with you in future too. And it will be nice for FairGaze also. And also to all the lovely audience who are watching us, I would like to announce about our upcoming webinars. So we hold webinars on every Friday, Saturday, and Monday on different topics. And upcoming Friday, we are going to have a session on digital parenting. So Pooja ma'am also talked about something a little bit about helicopter parenting. It's all about that. So you can also join us there, and you can visit our FairGaze website. There, all the details of the webinars are there. It's okay. So thank you so much, ma'am, for having us here and for your valuable views. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we are going to end. Thank you so much, lovely audience, for being so cooperative and interactive today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.